before I ask you a question, I want to compliment you again for your contribution to the agreement on free trade area between China and ASEAN. I read his memoir. He gave an anecdote which is very important, which explains a lot on today's topic, East Asia and Southeast Asia, China and ASEAN. That is, when China proposed this free trade agreement, at that time, the year 2000, ASEAN was more or less still pro-United States. So when China made this proposal, many ASEAN members were at shock. They could not believe that China could make this offer. And then George made a proposal to the Chinese government. He said, maybe we'll start with something simpler and easier. There's an early harvest, so that those especially weak members can really taste the fruits of this kind of possible agreement. And Zhurongji said, great idea, we accept. And 2 years later, when the two sides signed this agreement, Zhurongji made a very important and, in the end, very important remarks. He said, 10 years from now, if ASEAN feels this agreement is somehow a kind of imbalance in favor of China rather than ASEAN, we can renegotiate or we can change and modify this agreement. So this is very well received. So that reminds me of, a very important relationship in the world today. One is ASEAN and China. The other is EU and United States. Both international regional organizations with a big power. And you may remember the Munich Security Conference issued a report for the world for last year. Yeah. It's called lose-lose. Yeah. And I made a comment, said, no, it's not accurate. It's a lose-lose for Europe. In Asia, it's a win-win. Because if you look at the size of ASEAN plus China, 2 billion people, 3 times of the population of Europe. Yet, over the past 4 decades, it's win-win. And one major reason is the anecdote he mentioned in his book. We signed this free trade agreement based on mutually acceptable conditions. And China, as a major power, respects ASEAN. We recognize it economically, politically, security-wise, we respect ASEAN. And China is the country that first recognized ASEAN's neutrality, centrality, nuclear-free zone, and more. But if you look at the United States, it's totally different. It's closely associated with NATO's philosophy. Keep America in, keep Russia out, keep Germany down. Of course, with Donald Trump, things began to change a bit, but who knows what will happen. He's less predictable. So my question for George, for Minister Yu, is do you think, this relationship between ASEAN and China can be a model for EU and United States?
The EU is an inspiration to ASEAN. When I was trade minister, I had on my table the Treaty of Rome, which in 80 pages described the construction of the European Common Market. It was a simple document, easy to understand, almost inspiring. And at that time for us in ASEAN, pointed the way forward for the next few steps. But Europe became more and more complicated. Until today, the documents defining the EU, the acquis communautaire, will cover a whole room. And you need many PhDs to understand Europe today in detail. The danger when you have such a complicated construction is that Europeans don't understand the institutions. Even as a minister, it was not easy for me to understand European institutions. And unless ordinary people have an affection for institutions, they will become alienated from it. So there is today all over Europe a feeling that Brussels is oppressive. And the British monarchy, for all its foibles, we understand what it is. It's obvious. It's almost touchable. And people like it. The British love their monarchy. I mean, they know their failings and so on, but it's okay. It's still their monarchy. But Brussels is amorphous, it's distant, it's mysterious, and not fully accountable. We don't want to be like that in ASEAN. So we decided from very early, the Treaty of Rome is good, but beyond that, we have to find our own way to the future. For example, in Europe, at every meeting, they vote. And there's brinksmanship up to the early hours of the morning on every issue. In ASEAN, we have about 1,000 meetings a year. We never vote. We never vote. We can vote, but we never vote. Why don't we vote? Because face matters in Southeast Asia. If I win this time round and you lose, next time round you get back at me. And then in the end, we are maneuvering against one another. What do? Say on an issue, one country is adamantly against. We show respect. So we'll talk about it, we'll say, let officials study it further, we form an eminent persons group, we refer it to another committee, and then we go round and round, gradually like water, eroding the hard corners. And after a while, social pressure accumulates, and people say, okay, let's compromise. Then we move on. So the river meanders, but it still goes downhill. That's ASEAN. So year by year, it seems frustratingly inefficient. But it's okay. We make progress. Most importantly, we have kept the peace in the region.